YouTube Ozzico in the Goat House is back. Going over a lot in this video right here, getting you guys ready for free agency, which starts tomorrow, Monday. Teams can start agreeing with free agents, and on Wednesdays, we're teams officially, put pen to paper there. But a lot of news going to be coming out tomorrow. Trades possibly as well. We'll have you covered for all that. In this video, going over a ton here. We're going to start with the players I think teams should avoid in free agency. Players that might get overpaid, or I don't want teams to overpay on those players. And then tweaking some of my free agency predictions, have some changes. Also have some new free agency predictions. We'll grade the Jalen Ramsey trade. We'll talk about new trade candidates, other possible trade candidates, and more. Maybe talk about some news, rumors, buzz as well. We have some recent videos predicting where free agents will go. There's a ton of them, 3 recent videos. Check those out. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We'll grade every single signing starting tomorrow. We'll have several videos with those. Make sure you follow us on our Twitter. That is a must follow. Live news, rumors, updates, breaking news, instant analysis. On your screen is a link pinned in the comments that'll bring you directly there. Same with our Discord. Same with our sponsors. GLD Shop, which has NFL jewelry, Liquid IV, Walk the Mock. You guys know the drill. Links pinned in the comments. Let's start with players I think teams should probably avoid, kind of based on what I'm hearing. They're getting a bunch of buzz, maybe getting overhyped a little bit too much, or just teams may very easily overpay for these types of guys. And I think sometimes this happens. The chatter kind of happens because like a writer says our team should get this guy, and everyone that kind of talks himself into it and just gets hyped about it. So sometimes that's the case. But Caleb McGarry, right tackle from the Falcons, has been getting a lot of hype recently, and people talking about him getting in that, nearing that price range of the top right tackles, Juwan Taylor, Mike McGlinchey. I think that's a little ridiculous. The Falcons declined that 5th-year option for a reason a year ago, just before this year, which was just over $13 million. And the reason that was because before this past year, which he played decent, and a lot of people want to base things off a PFF grade, which doesn't tell us much. History shows it's just their way of doing things there is a little different, but. Why they declined that option, that was around $13 million. It's because before this past year, he's had injuries and he's played well below average. He's been a little disappointing. So I think it's a big-time gamble. I wouldn't go much more than that, what that 5th-year option was supposed to be. If you're getting $14 million, I think it's a little overpay, but sometimes it's okay to overpay a little bit if you have to have a guy. But if we're pushing over $14 million per year, we're getting ridiculous. It's too much of a gamble there. Some of the other Falcons guys, too, last year played better than expected. I think it might be a scheme thing over there, with Arthur Smith. And you see he left the Titans. They went from one of the best offensive lines to, a lesser of an offensive line. They're rebuilding the offensive line now. So, yeah, I'd be a little – if I was a GM, I'd stay away from that one. Unless, of course, all these, if the price is lower than what it sounds like they're going to get, if it's a reasonable, like around the $13 million range or less, okay, then I'd be for it, But, it's been getting some weird buzz. Like he's almost like he's in the conversation with Taylor and McGlinchey, and maybe he will be when it comes to price. I am not going to agree with that, though. Zach Allen's another one, defensive lineman from the Cardinals, who had a breakout year last year. People recently started talking like he had this monster season, though. Like he had an impressive breakout year, but no, it was not a monster season. Even Boston College days, I wasn't really, Allen, is he a edge rusher, 4-3 end? No, he doesn't have the speed for that. Is he an interior, like a 3-4 end interior guy? I don't know if he has the strength for that. More so a 3-4 end. That's kind of where he's played with the Cardinals, and he was all right. He was pretty solid last year. I think really benefited from just specifically fitting that specific scheme. And then having J.J. Watt, which he's a very poor man's type of J.J. Watt, like type player there. So, and I'm starting to hear he might get a lot more than because I figured he was like but easily under $10 million per year type player. Now I've been hearing more. It's just, that is such a gamble to me. I wouldn't mind him back to the Cardinals, but he specifically fit that Vance Joseph scheme who he's with the Broncos now. We'll actually talk a little bit more about Zach Allen in my prediction a little bit, but all these players, I'm not saying they're bad players. They're pretty good players, some promise here, but just based on what I'm hearing, Rock Yassine's another one, cornerback from the Raiders. He was with the Colts obviously before. I recently heard some buzz that he might get paid more than what people think. It's just a guy that really hasn't lived up to expectations yet. He's got some experience starting. I think people are in awe with his jam technique, his press ability, but there's a lot more to corner than that. He's had some injuries. He's gotten beat a bit. Teams are trying to force him into man coverage situation because he can press, but can he cover? Can he run with guys is good? I think he's been overhyped. I know Raiders fans were kind of like, oh my God, we just got a really good corner. That wasn't really the case there, when they got him. But we'll talk about where I think he'll go. But that's a guy that I'm not, paying anywhere near some of these other corners. Miles Sanders is another one, which I actually could see teams being careful with him. Really good running back, obviously. Really good running back. I think the Eagles probably made him look better this past year than he actually is. He was a little underwhelming before this last year. And the Eagles can take not anybody, but almost anyone. Running backs that you probably think aren't as talented as Sanders, and they might actually look more talented. Might be a scheme thing. My point is I think Sanders is going to ask to be, actually the actual top running backs got taken off the board with a franchise tag. So I think Sanders is going to be asked to be the top paid running back on free agency. He might ask for over $10 million over the franchise tag. What those guys got, I just say no, to that. I'm just going to say no. I just rather draft one or find a cheaper one that might not look as good right now, but really might be better, just all about where they were, where they played. So I'd be careful with Sanders, which I could actually see, with McGarry, Allen, and Yassine. I don't think teams are going to follow me, really. Yeah, Yassine maybe. McGarry and Allen, I don't think teams are going to follow me. I think they're going to pay those guys too much. Sanders, they might follow what I'm saying here. They might let him. He might sit around for a little. I could be wrong. He might sit around for a little bit because he's asking for too much and then kind of come back down to earth there. But avoid paying him around that franchise tag, even close to it, like $9 million. I would avoid that all day. Good, talented player. All these players are talented. They got some upside too, so don't get me wrong here. But those are players that have very recently, mainly the first three. I haven't heard really anybody really hyping up Sanders. I just really want teams to be careful because I know what he's going to ask for. But the first three, some weird buzz lately. I mainly think it's kind of media for teams trying to hype them up and everyone trying to talk them to their team like, all right, this is going to be great if we get this guy. But is it really? Or are you just saying that because you think you're going to get him? Tends to be the case. And I think those guys kind of fit those categories there. I want to update some of my predictions here that we've been doing. We've been predicting all these free agents. Last 3 videos. Go check them out. And I'm going to update a few of them here. Jessie Bates is one. And I really liked the Browns and the Patriots for him as my prediction. And I mentioned other teams like the Falcons as well. So my favorite fit's been the Patriots. I've been preaching that for like a year. Figured McCourty would retire. He did. Single high free safety role is what they're looking for. That's where Jessie Bates is best at. That's where he's a big-time playmaker. That's what he's really good at. So I would just love him with the Patriots. They have cap space. Hasn't been enough buzz about it. I recently predicted the Browns, even though I kind of was pushing for the Patriots. The Browns, because they moved on from John Johnson, they could use a free safety. There's been some buzz about it as well. I'm going to tweak my prediction here. I'm going to go with the Falcons, who I thought was a landing spot before. Been hearing a little bit about this. That they're going to go all out in free agency, and this is hearing they're going to go all out for a free safety. And really, Jessie Bates is far and away like the free safety of free agency. So a team with a lot of money, he can kind of fit their what they're doing. They're looking for younger, good play. They're not in stage 1 of rebuild, no way. But they're looking for young, good players. And here you go. Here's one that I'm a huge fan of. So I'll go with the Falcons there. They do have a couple guys that can play safety. Pretty versatile safeties as well. And that's in the past when I mentioned the Falcons need a safety the last year or two or whatever. So our fans were getting a little upset with me because maybe a little of an attachment to guys like Jalen Hawkins and Richie Grant, who, those are guys you really shouldn't be attached to, but they're got some promise and they're decent, and both have played strong in free safety throughout their career. Whether you're looking, Hawkins played both with the Falcons. Grant played both when you look through his college and NFL career. So that's why it's a tough prediction. Who do they view as their free safety? Does it even matter? Do they think like, hey, we're gonna be way better with Jessie Bates, which is fact. So do we just go get him? I love that thinking. I'm starting to think, based on what I'm hearing, that could be the case. They're gonna spend big. I kind of predicted that already. I think I tweeted it too. I think the Falcons probably go bigger than anybody in free agency. It could be wrong. Could be Bears. Could be Texans. Could be number Patriots, Browns, number of teams here. But, I'm hearing they're going to go for a free safety. And Jessie Bates is the free safety of free agency. Like, there's other guys that could play there, but are they as good? Are they the guy there? And then they ran a lot of cover 3 last year, which I think Bates could fit. But they get Ryan Nielsen, who was the Saints defensive coordinator, and they ran a lot of man coverage there, and they always, had a coverage safety in the back end. Marcus Williams was one for a bit, and they valued that, I should say. So Bates makes sense, in that category as well. So I love the fit of the Patriots. Love it. Maybe my favorite fit of all of free agency. And it might not happen. The Browns make some sense after they cut John Johnson. Leaning towards, I'm going to follow some buzz here and then kind of what makes some sense here in the Falcons with Jessie Bates. But I'm not a Patriots fan, but I'm kind of pulling for that. Keep checking my phone just in case there's new news that drops here, because it's been pretty crazy today. Yesterday a little quiet, but so just Jessie Bates prediction updated. Another one I want to update is Jordan Poyer, which he doesn't have a whole lot of landing spots, I suppose, because he's been a decent player, was underrated even coming out of, he's been a great player. He was a decent player throughout the early part of his career. He was underrated coming out of Oregon State. Never really fully given a chance, and he goes to the Bills, and he was getting better and better, but then he goes to the Bills and he finds like a perfect home, a lot of cover two, a lot of split safety action over there, so I'm kind of specifically looking for those types of fits. I love the Chiefs. The Chiefs ran a lot more cover two last year, which they did the year before as well. I just see him with Justin Reed. That kind of reminds me of him and Micah Hyde, like two like split safety duo type guys. And then Thornhill is a free agent, but Thornhill is more, that's the downside of that. Reed can play strong or free. Thornhill is more of the free, so if you let Thornhill walk, do you grab more of the free guy? But when you're playing that much cover two with a split safety, really, is there much of a free and strong safety most of the time? Not really. So I do love the fit there. Eagles make some sense depending on who they lose. Honestly, if they get Gardner Johnson back, they could get Poyer too. I don't see why not. And it's like a contending team that maybe, because I could see him, like he's a guy that can break the bank because he's a really good safety. He's also a guy I could see kind of sitting around a little bit and actually getting a bit less than what he thought he would get. And that could be the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Raiders, though. I heard that the Raiders are looking for specifically a strong safety type player, and they might be able to. They ran a lot of man coverage last year. They might be willing to mix it up a little bit this upcoming year, and they kind of want the guys so they're not stuck in one coverage. So that it kind of made some sense. That Poyer with the Raiders kind of made some sense there. And they're going to keep Marag at that free safety role, which throughout his career, looking at college and NFL, young career, he's played a bit of everything. Seen him at free, seen him at strong, seen him at slot corner almost as well, like a box guy. But maybe a little split safety action with Marag and Poyer, and if you got a free and a strong, it'd be Marag in the free and the Poyer in the strong. It makes sense to me. So, and then the buzz starting to heat up about the Raiders possibly being in on a strong safety, or just a safety in general. We know, we've been saying they got to be in on corners. We know that, like Nate Hobbs in the slot. So that made some sense to me. So this is one I, didn't feel great about originally. I was like, where's Poyer going to go? I like the Eagles, my original prediction. I love the fit of the Chiefs, but they're really going to do it. So I didn't really have a firm one. Leaning towards the Raiders now. And now Dre'Mont Jones, I keep hearing that the Broncos aren't going to win the bidding war for Dre'Mont Jones. Somebody's going to offer something ridiculous. Multiple teams offer something ridiculous. Right before we're going to record this, Deron Payne, who is a little bit different of an interior defensive lineman than Dre'Mont Jones, but an interior defensive lineman. Deron Payne with the Commanders, taking off that franchise tag, extended 4-year, $90 million. That is $22.5 million per year or whatever. Second highest paid defensive tackle. That bumped up the price for these other guys. It just most definitely did for free agency, so they're going to be asking for more. My favorite fit's the Panthers, which he definitely could land there still, because Dre'Mont Jones has been a pretty decent player for most of his career as a 3-4 end, but last year really took off, and he was still a 3-4 end. The Panthers are switching to 3-4. They're also, because their coordinator is Jiro Evero, who is the Broncos defensive coordinator this year, where Dre'Mont Jones took off as a 3-4 end. Panthers make the most sense to me as a fit, as a landing spot, everything. And they're going to be bigger spenders than you think. They have a lot of future space. That's my favorite fit, and it almost was my prediction because it definitely could happen. Maybe they're focused on getting weapons to replace DJ Moore. Maybe they can do both. Don't love the fit, but I keep hearing these teams linked to Dre'Mont Jones. And I keep hearing the Browns and the Bears. Lions could be a sneaky team that kind of falls under that category as well. They're 4-3 teams, which Jim Schwartz came into the Browns, and he's got experience with different looks throughout his past. So Maybe the Browns switch it up. I don't know. I think you already have the pieces there to play 4-3. But yeah, I like Dre'Mont Jones at 3-4 end. I like him as that's where you're gonna pay him a ton of money because what you saw this year and what he can get to as a 3-4 end. Maybe he's talented enough to be okay in a 4-3, but does he have the speed to play off the edge in the 4-3? If you're signing him as a D tackle, I keep hearing 3 technique, which is a defensive tackle that plays on the outside shoulder of the guard, and they're more of a pass rushing D tackle. That's what he would fit if he's a D tackle. But those types of players simply just don't get paid a whole lot of money, and teams typically wait to draft them as well. So you're valuing him a ton, so it's tough to see the complete change there to me. So I don't know if I'm those teams, maybe I'm interested because he's a really good player, but I'm not gonna pay him anywhere near over the 18 million. It's gonna get more than that, now. So I don't know. I don't love the fits there. And the Texans technically under D'Amico Ryan's base will be 4-3, but a little bit unique of a defense. One side has a very physical defensive end, hand in the dirt. One side is a guy that could put his hand in the dirt, but also could stand up, could drop in coverage, and they'll typically have a versatile guy across the defensive line. And I just think with D'Amico Ryan's defense, I think what was an important piece was Arik Armstead, who played D end and slid inside a bit. Did a little bit of everything, and Ryan just not only got the most out of him, but got the most out of a lot of his players. Players expect better than what they were expected. So I make an exception for the Texans there. I think Dre'Mont Jones could fit in that role, which would make him worthy of the money. Like, he's playing multiple roles, and we know he can play this role. Like, if he's playing a 4-3 edge, the money's there, but it's like, can he play this role? And is he worth it as a D tackle? So that's kind of the question. So I'll predict the Texans because I love that fit with Ryans, but I really like the fit with the Panthers as well. So he's a tricky one. Very curious to see how much he's going to pay and which scheme. Most importantly, where's he going to go? Byron Murphy, I had going to the Dolphins. The Dolphins traded for Jalen Ramsey. I think if the Dolphins missed on Ramsey, they definitely would have been on Byron Murphy, a young corner that still has some upside. So I'm going to tweak my prediction on that one. Favorite fit, back and forth between the Vikings and the Lions in this one. I like the Vikings, though. I can see them in Brian Flores' defense, add a young corner here. Play some man coverage, play some cover 3. They can play them outside, play them in the slot. They're kind of looking for both there. So that made sense as a fit. The Lions do as well. They missed out on Jalen Ramsey, and that not that I'm really comparing the two, but it's just a type of corner they could be after. But I'll say the Cardinals keep them. They could be in on another corner, maybe like a James Bradbury. But, they're in like a retool stage. Murphy could be a part of that, still very young. The question is, does Jonathan Gannon like him? We know the Cardinals organization likes him, but I'd say Gannon probably does. So we'll go Cardinals getting him back. The Dolphins might have beat them out in a bidding war if they didn't get Ramsey, though, but we'll tweak my prediction on that one. And then C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I'm starting to kind of think what I originally thought. Like, is another team going to value him as much as the Eagles do? Because before, coming out of Florida, the Florida Gators, like, he was a pretty good player, but teams like, what do we do with this guy? Where do we put him? And the Saints take him, and they play him primarily in the slot, and that's where he's pretty good. But, teams don't value slot guys, even if they're really, really good. They get $10 million, less than $10 million, probably these days, probably around $10 million per year. The Eagles grab him, though, and remember what he got traded for, like nothing, because teams didn't really know what to do with him. Teams like, where do we value him at? How much of a contract does he need? Because we don't want to pay him that much if he's just going to be a slot guy. The Eagles grab him. They do like all of the above with him. Plays in the slot, really, we saw him line up at free and strong safety sometimes as well. So it's very tough to predict. Is there another team that's going to value him like that? Because if he's able to play all those positions in their specific scheme at that high of a level, then he's going to be worthy of their contract. I could see the Falcons, who was my original prediction, I'm kind of more in on Jessie Bates, even though a different player. They could get both of them. Pretty wild, but they could do it, The Cardinals have Jonathan Gannon, which we know he fits that defense. In that specific scheme, he works as a slot corner and actually could thrive as more than just a slot corner, so I could see that as well. But I'm starting to think that the Eagles are going to value him more and the way he played for them this year. But Where the Eagles got to be careful is, does he fit the new defense? He worked in Gannon's scheme, decides going to, maybe you try to run the same scheme, but is it going to work? Is he going to end up being, if they sign him to a long-term deal, just a slot guy? Then you're overpaying. So the Eagles do have to be very careful with this one, moving forward. But I'm going to say, I'd watch out for the Falcons and the Cardinals and some other teams that I could see, but I'm looking at those teams. It's definitely possible, but I'm going to say that the Eagles probably, what are my original thoughts? Like, is anyone going to value him nearly as much as the Eagles? Probably not, is kind of where I'm gearing towards here. So those are some updated predictions. Let's get some new predictions, some random players that I just have feelings about. We give some other options here. Poona Ford, Seahawks could be looking to get somebody better, but he could go back to Seahawks. But the Browns, I kind of have missing out on some top-tier defensive tackles, and then Poona Ford's a solid one that also can line up at nose and then get him. I'd watch out for some wild card teams there, and the 49ers and the Bengals, teams that secretly want, maybe not so much the 49ers, but they want a defensive tackle. I mean, by secretly, not so much the 49ers. They want a defensive tackle, but they're not going to go spend on the Hargrave or maybe not even the Dalvin Tomlinson. They might, get a team like the 49ers, I could see them being in on him. They might go for the Poona Ford. Zach Allen, the Cardinals defensive lineman. It's got to be Broncos or Cardinals. He's back with the Cardinals or back with Vance Joseph and the Broncos. We'll go more that route because he kind of somewhat thrived in that scheme last year. I just don't know if he's going to fit a whole lot of teams. I'd say beware. Talked about in the beginning of the video for other teams there. Okoronkwo, who for the Texans at the end of last year started to take off. We always knew he had the athletic profile as well, and he started to take off at the end of last year. He probably should have played more. I'm going to go Bengals. I like the fit. He could go back to the Texans. I can see him still fitting in DeMeco Ryans' scheme. Okoronkwo's a sneaky one because he's kind of just an up-and-comer, and I think he could fit any scheme. I think he proved he can fit any scheme. I like the Bengals as a fit, though, because you look at their starting defensive ends are Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. These are more of your physical-type defensive ends, and they like throwing like kind of a athletic guy in there too, because those other guys, they're not super athletic. They are though, but not super. They're physical, and they kind of can slide inside, especially Sam Hubbard because of his run defense. It's like to have some other guy, an athletic profile type guy on the outside, and they sometimes give different looks as well. And they do have Joseph Asai, which is pretty comparable, Asai and Okoronkwo, but I could just see a really good fit in that defense there. So it makes some sense. He's kind of a sneaky free agent. Sean Murphy Bunting, who I really liked. I really liked coming out of Central Michigan as either an outside or slot guy. And then right away, he was pretty damn good. Like a Super Bowl year even, he was pretty good. And last year, he was like non-existent. Like the Bucs started using him less and less. I like him as an outside corner or an inside corner. More likely an inside corner, but I like them both. So I'll say the Vikings, who will run a bit of man in cover 3. I like the fit there. I could see the Lions and Raiders as well, but Murphy Bunting is also a sleeper free agent here because he was pretty good, until last year, which we barely saw him. And Rock Yassin, I'm feeling Cardinals or Raiders here. I could see the fit with the Cardinals. They're going to look for another corner. They can re-sign Byron Murphy and then sign Yassin as well. The Raiders could get him back. I do think Yassin's on a little bit of the overrated side, though. I talked about it in the beginning portion of the video. Be careful how much you spend on him. And Lazard, I keep hearing Ravens and Chiefs and Ravens for Lazard. The Chiefs aren't going to go crazy with the money on Lazard, I don't think. I don't see them doing that, but they are interested. And the Ravens, it wouldn't make much sense either. I mean, they have the Lamar situation. They don't know how much they're going to have to spend on this year one with the cap hit for that. And they got to go big at receivers. So, and it sounds like Lazard's a guy that could actually get overpaid. I like Lazard, though. He's underrated as a good player, but it sounds like he could get overpaid. The Ravens cannot afford to do that right now. If you're going to do that, go get the better receiver. Go finally get the sure thing receiver. I'll say the Jets pairing up with Rodgers. I think they could move on from Corey Davis still, and they could add Lazard, and that could kind of be their their offseason for the big moves. Maybe extending Quinnen Williams, bringing back his brother Quincy, getting Rodgers, adding a guy like Lazard. But I keep hearing Ravens and Chiefs, so just keep an eye on those. Some more predictions, some random ones, kind of Baker Mayfield hearing some buzz about the Bucs, so we'll go that route. The Rams could be in option. I hear the 49ers as well. So kind of going off that one based on what I'm hearing. Brissett, I've been saying Cardinals makes sense as a fit there, what they're trying to run, their new offense. And Kyler Murray is going to be out for a little bit perhaps because he's going to be injured still. Brissett with his knowledge and experience starting and filling in it makes some sense. The Bucks, if they miss out on Mayfield, or I can see the Texans, some connections there, and they could pick him, they can get him and then draft a guy. Minshew, I think, is going to be Dolphins or Colts. I guess Eagles is a possibility again, but Dolphins or Colts to me. Maybe the Colts with Steichen, but the Dolphins I think will be. They made it pretty clear they don't want a starting quarterback. They don't really want a guy that's going to threaten Tua at all. And they have Skylar Thompson there as well, but I think it's going to be a priority to find a decent number 2 here. So I could see Minshew the Dolphins. Mason Rudolph. I was kind of feeling the Lions for a bit, but the Niners, it seems like they are in on other quarterbacks with some experience, and they could miss out on Baker Mayfield, so they could end up with a guy like Mason Rudolph. Azeez Al-Shaair, I think myself and everyone out there have kind of been predicting this one with the Texans. Quincy Williams, I've heard that the Jets are trying to work a deal with him and his brother Quinnen Williams, who will be more expensive. But Quincy Williams, the linebacker, they might get a deal done at any given time. Could happen any second. And Landon Roberts, who's been an inside linebacker in Flores' defense, whether it was with the Patriots or the Dolphins, I think it makes sense because the Vikings might be looking for 2 inside linebackers. I think that makes some sense there, who's been pretty solid in that Flores scheme. So, that made sense. Trade candidates. Some newer trade candidates. We talk trade all the time. Trade candidates, predictions. But since the last time we talked, maybe some newer guys that are, legit, listed at the top in green, legit trade candidates. Darius Slay, he didn't request a trade or anything, but the Eagles are like, yeah, just go ahead and seek a trade. So that's a little odd. Tricky situation with Slay, though, because he probably does want a new deal, just looking at the situation. He's 32 years old. He's a phenomenal corner, but does a team trade a pick, which would probably be a decent pick for Darius Slay? And extend 32-year-old. I don't know how many teams would be interested in that, even though the idea of having Slay is pretty good to them. The Lions missed out on Ramsey. Maybe they bring back a familiar face in Darius Slay. Raiders, Lions makes sense. I think going to be too expensive for maybe the Vikings, a team like that. But, maybe you can't fully rule it out. But Raiders, Lions, teams like that. Does a trade actually happen, though, for those reasons? Dalvin Cook's another one. Centered around trade talks. It's been reported multiple times, the Vikings running back, and it sounds like they want to bring back Alexander Madison, so maybe move on from Cook. I'm having a hard time seeing, kind of like Slay, like who's going to trade for Cook? Like good running back, like a really good running back, explosive, can catch the ball, really good after the catch as well, but we have $11 million, a pretty pricey contract. You trade a pick, even if it's a cheaper, if there is going to be a trade, I imagine it's a lower pick, honestly. Like day 3 for sure. But do you trade, do you spend that money, trade a pick, for him coming off shoulder surgery, or do you just sign a guy for cheaper when there's pretty good ones out there, or draft a guy, that way you don't have to trade a pick. So, but apparently at least one team has made an offer. I mean, he is a pretty good running back, so I guess you could see it. Cortland Sutton's been mentioned. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's been mentioned a bit. I guess I should have thrown Jerry Jeudy in that bottom part, but I just don't think the Broncos are going to trade Jerry Jeudy. But teams have called about Jeudy and Sutton. I think they're more likely to trade Sutton. I think it feels the sense is they're kind of open to trading Sutton. They don't want to, they're not going to force him out, but they could. And I actually talked about on Twitter. What if we get a Sutton and Cook in the same deal? Vikings, Broncos will be looking for a running back. Javonte Williams going to miss some time. I predicted Kareem Hunt for them, and I'm kind of sticking to that, though. So maybe less likely on that, Dalvin Cook deal. Who's going to trade for Cook? It's not the Dolphins, maybe, but they just trade for Ramsey. I guess doesn't, they traded some pick. Only 1 third round, so it doesn't really rule them out there for Sutton. Yeah, all those teams we've been talking about that need receivers. A long list of teams. I like Cortland Sutton a lot, always have. Maybe you get him less than value based on what the talk's been happening. So that could be one that everybody should want, really, if you need a receiver. Colts are expected to be sellers. That was a big report earlier today. Ryan Kelly, it looks like they're shopping the center that's kind of been declining a little bit, but had some good years in the past and should still have it in him. There's teams that could definitely use a center. Seahawks, Browns, Cardinals. Not going to trade him to the Titans. They're not going to trade him to the Texans. There's definitely some teams that could use a center in there for sure. Cardinals are probably the team that stands out the most, perhaps. And it sounds like teams been calling about Mo Alley Cox. I immediately think of the Panthers with that one. I thought the Panthers could be in. I got like Mike Gesicki. Now that Mo Alley Cox is available, maybe they're more likely to go with him, and then Gesicki go elsewhere. Perhaps that could be my new prediction. Brian might have need a new prediction for Gesicki, but I just instantly think of the Panthers. Frank right there. They did already trade some picks. Can they afford to trade more picks? That's the question there. And other guys that, we'll talk about them one by one. Stephon Gilmore, I've mentioned a bit pretty far in the past, actually, that should be a trade candidate this offseason. Has not been mentioned by anybody at all yet. The Colts are expected to be sellers. Gilmore's up there in age. The Colts are in some sort of retool stages. One more year left in his deal. Get something for him now while he has some value. It just makes sense to me. So could he become, it would surprise a lot of people out there because no one has talked about it. It's not going to surprise me. So could he become available? Could he end up on I like the Raiders. I like the Lions, teams like that. Vikings. Could Kenny Moore become available? He was at the Combine. He was talking during the Combine, almost like that he doesn't know if the new scheme is for him. Maybe they don't think he's for it, so that almost sounded like the way he was talking, like he could be out. And again, they're selling right now. So Moore is he could be the best slot corner in football. He also can play outside. So that's a guy that could become available as well. Probably a cover 2 scheme. Teams looking to run. It just depends on what his asking price is going to be. But probably a cover 2 scheme there. Laramie Tunsil was mentioned that he could be a candidate this morning. I know Texans fans were getting upset about that because he's been mentioned in the past and never really was. So he might not be right now either. It was mentioned he could be a candidate. It was mentioned the Chiefs are a team to watch if they lose Orlando Brown Jr. So if they lose Orlando Brown Jr., if Tunsil actually is available, I could see it. Teams will probably call. Texans probably won't be dying to trade him. He did retweet just today after that report of, it doesn't mean much, but at all. But Mahomes tweeting, next week's going to be wild. And, the popcorn emojis, so Tunsil retweeted that. So, do they know something's coming? Most likely not. But then Derrick Henry's been mentioned. He's been mentioned as a trade candidate. Then people were shooting it down like, nope, he's not getting traded. And now, teams are calling. Titans are listening. They're not dying to trade their star player. But could it happen? Kind of like the Dalvin Cook situation. You got a really good running back better here in Derrick Henry. But 10, 11 million, and you trade a pick. How much left in the tank does he have? If there's a guy that can last forever, that'd be Derrick Henry. He's pretty durable, I'd say. He's had some injuries pop up, but Bill's been talked about a bit. I don't think they would put that much value into a running back. But we'll see. Yeah. I think of a team like the Ravens. I think he'd fit the Ravens pretty damn well. But they got other things going on. And I mentioned could Lamar I could see Lamar and the Titans. I'm not counting on it. I could see it. So could they forget the agreeing to a deal and then sending over the 2 first-round picks? Let's make an agreement here. Lamar signed the franchise tag. We're going to trade you. They're going to rework. They're going to give you a whole new deal on top of that. That is where you had the tag and trade comes into play. It's happened in the past. So could you get it? Could Derrick Henry be involved in that? The Ravens clear a lot of space, shipping off Lamar because he's counting for just over 32 million against the cap, and then they get the first round pick probably as well. First and Derrick Henry for Lamar. Maybe there's more involved in that. It's a possibility. And Ryan Tannehill was mentioned at one point. Then it kind of sounded like the Titans are going to run it back with him. But I think we kind of wait and see, and that's why he could be a candidate. It depends on what Rodgers does. It depends on where Jimmy Garoppolo goes. Maybe it depends on if other guys are available for trade or not. The Jets have been linked to Tannehill. If Rodgers retires, it's a possibility. He's got a connection with Arthur Smith, who's with the Falcons now. Maybe that's a possibility. I've heard somebody say the Commanders. I don't really see it, but who knows? Maybe it opens back up there with a guy like Ryan Tannehill. So some guys to watch out for there. So a big-time splash trade happened just a little bit ago, a couple hours ago. Jalen Ramsey went to the Dolphins for a surprising here, 2023 third-round pick in Hunter Long, former Boston College tight end who hasn't really worked out yet, has one career catch. So this is a surprise in terms of compensation. It sounded like other teams were in, including the Lions, who we expected to be in, and they were probably offering more. But Ramsey said he wanted to play for the Dolphins, so they sent him to the Dolphins there. So yeah, this was a surprise. I think Ramsey's he's easily worth a first-round pick, possibly more. But I thought it was realistic for it to be like multiple day twos. If it's 2 seconds, great. If it's a second and a third, plus a day 3 pick, whether it's future or this year, a mixture, whatever, sure, it can make some sense because they're looking just to clear the space, get him out of there. But for this, it's a bit surprising. I already kind of graded this on Twitter right away. It's just pretty clear cut. We added the plus on for the Rams. Dolphins get an A+. They get maybe the best cornerback in football. Was he the best cornerback in football last year alone? Probably not, but that's not what it's all about. In general, like at the top of my mind, like who's the best corner in football? I think it's Jalen Ramsey. He's great in zone. He can also shadow guys. He's probably the best tackling corner in football. He comes up and makes stops all the time. He's a big-time player. He's a mixture of a lockdown guy and a playmaker. Usually that's kind of rare. Either you're a lockdown guy, you don't get your hands on the ball a lot. I thought he made some big-time plays last year throughout his career. They gave up way less than value. Dolphins get an A+. They needed a corner. They recently cleared space. It's clear-cut. The Rams, give him an F+. Again, I think he's a first-round talent, but okay. They're desperate to clear space. So it knocks down his value a little bit. Maybe you don't get a first round, even though I still thought and the talk was they were going to get a first round. Maybe you get a 2 seconds. Maybe you get a second and a third and a fifth. Maybe just a second and a third. All right. No, you get a third round pick and a guy the Dolphins are probably very good with getting rid of, and a guy that's had 1 catch. I'm sure maybe he has upside in the McVay scheme. Maybe they see something, but I don't know. And I see people now saying, well, it's not that bad because they cleared space. I think now you're starting to talk yourself into it. Like, he cleared space for the future. Does that mean it's okay to get severely undervalued for an elite football player at a very difficult position to play? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, and the other thing I don't like about the Rams is like you probably took less by not trading him the Lions because you sent them where he wanted to go. Like, what happened to this being a business? Rams made some splash trades and they won a Super Bowl. Because it was a business and they got a little carried away though, and now they're making some really bad moves these last couple years, or since last offseason, I should say, with the Stafford contract, maybe the Noteboom contract, multiple things there. Starting to think, yeah, I mean, what they did worked out. They won a Super Bowl. That's all that matters, and they were deserving of winning that Super Bowl. So don't get me wrong what I'm about to say. They were definitely deserving. They were super talented. They played everything right. They saved some things for the playoffs. We're kind of getting off topic, but with some of those deals, they might have got pretty damn lucky. Adding Stafford, who got hurt pretty much every year of his career, for him lasting all the way to the Super Bowl. Von Miller, same thing. There's a lot of luck involved, but they were definitely deserving. So those moves paid off. The picks moves, but they were very fortunate. So, and some of these moves backfiring on them, and this is not a good one. Of course, they cleared space for the future. Was he going to be around when they turn things around because they're rebuilding? It's only 28, so I think so. 28 to me is young. So, but yeah, I get the why I'll tack on the plus is because they cleared space in the future. Does that mean it's okay to send the guy where he wants to, take less, and not only take less, but take way less than his actual value? To me, no. Every time I grade a trade, even when it's draft picks, no matter what it is, even with draft picks, if it's no trade involved, I grade off value. Is the value here? It is not here. It is there for no, it's not even there for the Dolphins. They killed it with the value. So I'm going to grade like I always grade. A+ and F+ is what I got here for the wild trade that happened today. We were almost close to getting it right, too, because the Lions were involved, and I'm sure they offered more. We knew they'd be involved. So, pretty wild today. If we want to talk about, we talked about a lot in this video, a lot I wanted to clear up, go over. Here's our Twitter. If you're not following it, we can go over some things here. So there's some things I already talked about. So the second things happen, right before going to record this, Commander signed Deron Payne, 4-year, $90 million. So what is that? I tweeted that too. $22.5 million per year. That's a lot. Deron Payne's a great player, but it's more than I expected. But the market value is going up. The cap's going up. Second highest paid defense tackle in football. I thought he would get, what was the franchise tag? Over $18 million. I thought he'd get And maybe that was pushing it to the 19.5 million, but they go 22.5 million, and you get other fans of other teams can thank the Commanders for this one, because this will affect the market tomorrow. It will affect it, and it will affect guys, and I talked about that as well, guys looking for new deals right now. Chris Jones needs a new deal. He said he's going to remain a Chief forever, so maybe he'll take a little bit of a discount, but it's a bad man right there. Jeffrey Simmons also a bad. I mean, this Jeffrey Simmons is up there, at the top of the NFL at the defensive tackles, and he's only getting going. I've heard things haven't, the Titans really want to extend him, but things, they're not on the same page. And then boom, Deron Payne gets $22.5 million. Jeffrey Simmons is going to ask for more. He should get more. Dexter Lawrence, another guy's bad man. I was very high on him coming out. It's insane year. Fits that defense, which they like to keep together for a long time there. He fits it so perfectly. He's going to ask for more. He should get more. Quinnen Williams, monster year last year, so much upside. Same thing. They're going to demand more now. Before this, they might have been okay right around this, 22 million, 21 million, maybe 22.5, maybe 23. But now they see this guy and Deron Payne's a great player, had a monster season last year. He's got a lot of upside still. It's good that the Commanders are keeping him around. So I'm not trying to, at all. I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. But these players are, I'd say, Chris Jones, elite player. I think Jeffrey Simmons is on the brink of elite. Same with Dexter Lawrence. Same with Quinnen Williams. I think they're right there, what they could be. So with Payne getting $22.5 million, if I'm those guys or those guys' agents, I'm going, yeah, we're thinking like 25, 26 million. That's what we're thinking now. So those players are winners. Teams are probably losers, other teams, so Commanders kind of caused that. But it affects, again, tomorrow, and then the whole week, the whole offseason of free agency, who actual free agents are. The first guys are not free agents. They're looking for new deals right now. They're currently talking about new deals. Maybe throw Christian Wilkins up there with those guys as well, who had a really good year last year. Same draft class as Dexter Lawrence, his Clemson teammate. So, yeah, you get the idea. But guys that are actually free agents starting tomorrow, Javon Hargrave, who Deron Payne versus Javon Hargrave. Hargrave's probably a little bit better right now. He's 30 years old. Payne, a lot more upside. I think Payne had more value. But Hargrave, who is about to get paid, might get even paid even more now. He might be asking for around this range. I'd say a little bit less because, again, free agency, the 4-year deal, for an example, for Payne is about the future, what they can become. And, Hargrave is very, very, very good. Does he have more upside on him now, though? So, but his price probably came up. He's going to get over $20 million now. And Dre'Mont Jones, a little bit different type of player than those two, but his price probably came up. I mean, it sounded maybe a little too high before, around $19 million, but now it's probably going to be over. It's $20 million, just a little bit over. It just sounds like a little too much to me, but a pretty good player. So basically the point is, Payne's deal here is a major, major factor. Other teams and fans maybe not happy about this because how it's going to affect their team and their ability to get their defense tackles in free agency, wherever it may be. What else? Odell Beckham Jr. report that several teams are talking to Odell Beckham Jr. and things are going to ramp up. So I actually thought that would happen right after his workout. He looked really good, in better shape than ever. He's healthy now. Teams need a receiver right now more than ever. So I'm like, okay, he's going to sign pretty quick. I like this team, that team. We talked about in the past video as landing spots there. But then it came out last night that he could be asking for around $20 million. I don't know if he's going to get that. So I was thinking he might sit around for a little bit and realize that's he might be worth that with talent. Like, he might be worth that, but it's just too risky for teams. So that might come down a little bit. So he might sit around. But teams are talking, so it's supposed to ramp up pretty quick. Was exact words from Tom Pelissero, who we definitely trust very much. So maybe teams are willing to pay that price. I think more likely that he's actually not actually looking for that exact price. So we'll see. The Cowboys have been the team for a while, but they weren't at his workout. Could definitely still see it. We could see the Vikings. We can see the Bills. We can see the Chiefs, the Giants, the Jets, the Ravens. These teams were at his workouts. I'm probably a little less likely on teams that were on his workouts, like the Browns or the Cardinals. But you get the point there. Matt Milano extended 2 years. So when you extend guys, you create more years on the deal. So you can when you restructure contracts, you can push money onto future years on the deal. So that makes it easier to restructure money now, push it into future years. So they extend them, they do that, they clear space now, which was needed from the Bills. They might be pricey years in the future because of that, and because he's a very good player. I thought he was underpaid before. He was one of the better linebackers in football last year, more important to them than Tremaine Edmonds, who they would like to have back. You would like to get him back too, but so this was pretty bad. I don't know the super specifics on everything about the deal here yet, but this is probably a good thing here. It's 99.99% a good thing here, no matter the structure of that contract. So it's big. It is big for the Bills there. But yeah, everything else we see just kind of give you an idea of what we do here. Constantly, everything's first on Twitter, just not in, you just don't have me on your screen here, like in the videos. So we kind of get in both. You follow that Twitter, you get the live updates there. So it's very important for this time of the year. And it's a good time to do it for tomorrow, too, for the legal tampering period for free agency. So that wraps up this video. Really enjoyed this one. Felt like an actual show. We kind of went over different segments here, different things. So a lot of fun. Check out those recent videos if you haven't already. We got you covered with every single thing NFL. Excited to have the waves of grades for the signings and the different videos there starting tomorrow. And then we'll have there's going to be some crazy moves, some trades and more. And we have you covered the draft as well. So join us here on the channel. Make sure you turn those notifications on so you don't miss anything. Same thing on our Twitter. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.